So hi, I'm Nadine Patterson, once again of SIFTMedia 215, and I'm the technical host this evening. We're going to have Lois Moses introduce Nya Patrinos, who is a set decorator working in LA and the Dominican Republic right now. And we're also going to have our other host is Leanne Lindsay, and she is a film critic extraordinaire. But thank you for coming to this amazing workshop called The Art of Tone and Staging a Home.
This
workshop.
Wonderful little bundle of joy came into the world on May 22nd, 1970. And I waited a whole 9 months for her to get here. and she started out actually wanting to be an astrophysicist at 8 years old, and ended up finding the artistic spirit within her, which actually has its roots on her dad's side, and literally got into RISD at the behest of my mother, and who was very upset. She was supposed to be a doctor or a PhD of some sort, and ended up at RISD and transferred to University of Penn, finishing in architectural design. Then went about touring the world and studying at the Sorbonne for a while. Ended up coming back to the States, working in not only as a restaurateur, but also working with the Theater of the Deaf. And by this time, I think we're on 2 or 3 languages. And that's where it sort of culminated for her, working in set design and traveling with this company literally around the world, and particularly overseas. So, and she's worked on All Rise, Grand Crew, Pam and Tommy, The Morning Show, and those are Dear White People. Those are just some things recently. So without further ado, because I could go on forever, my wonderful, loving, terrific sister, Nya Patrinos, with no middle name.
Thanks, Lois. I appreciate that.
That is a wonderful introduction, Lois. Very loving. But it sounds like that you could have gone into any part of being an artist. You could have in any medium. So what led you to costume design? And then from costume design, how did you get a break to become a set designer?
Well, my mom is a nurse and my dad was a printer, and I really didn't know anything about sets. I went to Central. I always say I'm just a Black girl from Philly. And when I graduated from Penn with a degree in environmental design, like their undergraduate degree in architecture, the economy was really bad. And even the Wall Street Journal declared architecture a dead profession. So there were no jobs in architecture in 1990. And I ended up, like Lois said, I lived in France for a little while and everything. Came back, there were still no jobs. And I had cooked in high school at Rollers, if people know it, and Flying Fish and stuff like that. And my best friend was a chef. And she said, do you want to come up to Connecticut and cook for the rehearsals for the National Theater of the Deaf? Because I didn't have a job. So I said, sure, that would be fun. And then about 2 nights before they started going on tour, their wardrobe supervisor quit. And so they came to the window of the kitchen where I was cooking, and they said, do you know how to sew? And I said, I can sew a little, I can sew some. And they said, we're in a bind. Would you like to go on tour with us and be the wardrobe supervisor, assistant stage manager? So I didn't have anything
They know anything about your background at all?
No, they just know I was kind of the woman in the kitchen. And they must have seen something in me. Like maybe they thought, I don't know what they saw in me, something that they came to the window of the kitchen to. Maybe they knew I went to Penn, maybe, I don't know what they knew or what they didn't know. I know they needed somebody right away. And since the rehearsals were gonna be over, I wasn't gonna have a job. I said, yeah, I'd like to do that. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what it was. I didn't have people in my family who did things like that. So I went on tour, I tried to learn the job, and I learned about these things called sets. I didn't know we went to plays and everything, and I went to see Lois in California, and I kind of knew about sets a little bit, but it wasn't really on my radar wherever we were. And I thought, this set thing is kind of interesting. Like, I'm really interested in this set thing. So eventually that job came to an end because they really wanted a deaf person to do the job. They didn't want a hearing person to do it. And then somebody else said to me, Nya, I heard you're like assistant stage manager now. I mean, I guess I was. You want to like come work for the Pennsylvania Opera Theater in Philly? So I worked for the opera as assistant stage manager with very little money. Set designer on the opera. He was very cute and interesting and like kind of cool. And all the people that I met in the architecture firm were just, to me, kind of like bland. So I thought, you know, I want to be like cool and interesting. So maybe I will think about this set design thing more. And so I applied to graduate school with my art and architecture portfolio. I didn't really have any sets in there. I designed one set when I came back to Philly for Allen's Lane Art Center. And I really loved it. I had keys to the art center and I would like go visit my set at night when there was no play. Like I like to look at it. It was like very exciting to me. But I got a full scholarship to UCSD and UCLA for set design. Yeah. With my architecture painting portfolio.
You know,
and so
eventually, in order to work on TV and films and those kind of things, you have to join a union. So was that difficult? And
oh yeah, I mean,
that come about?
Oh yeah, it's not. So I did my 3-year master's, and then for another reason, I worked at like the Old Globe in the summer, and I worked at Jolla Playhouse, and then I kind of had to leave, you know, had a broken romance. I was like, I got to get out of San Diego. I'm going to become a stalker. Let me go up to LA because it wasn't healthy for me to be there anymore. I had to try something new. So somebody gave me a list of names of people to contact. The construction coordinator at Jolla Playhouse, or maybe it's Old Globe, maybe the Old Globe, gave me this list of names of all these production designers and different people. And I got to LA and my cousin lives there, who's almost like another sister. I moved in with her and I started calling people off the list. But all the people on the list were, well, we can't do anything really for you because you're not union, you know, you're not in the union. But one guy on the list gave me a little job, like drafting for him. He was working on, I forgot what the name of that show was, Babylon 5. And he had all these kind of young people ghost designing all the many projects he was doing besides Babylon 5. And so I worked there just a little bit. I wasn't into it, like being a ghost designer. And then I just started like doing all these student films for free. There used to be these magazines, Backstage West, Dramalogue. There wasn't really too much of the internet back then when I started. It's like 96 now I'm talking about. And so I started working for free on these student films and this one student film I worked for free got me this job that was like $50 a day. And then, you know, one day I got a job that was $75. You know, it's like this long kind of process. And then, you know, eventually I got in the union, like 5 years later, I got in the union. That's like a whole nother story about getting in the union, but I didn't get in the union as a production designer. When I first was there, I wanted to be a production designer. So I was production designing all these independent films, like a production design, like 13 or 14 independent movies. When the first couple of years I was in LA, they were just
and most of them for free?
No, well, some of them were for free and some of them were like for $50. I joined the union as a set dresser. So the thing happened was I got offered the biggest movie I had ever been offered as a production designer. It was going to be in Bimini. And I was young, I liked to party, I was fun. And I thought, I was going to get $2,000 a week. It was like a huge amount of money. So I was so excited and so thought I was going to have so much money. I started spending all this money on the idea that I was going to have some money and go to Bimini. But the movie folded. And all of a sudden I didn't have any money because I was spending money I didn't have. And a girlfriend of mine was a decorator, somebody I just kind of partied with. And she said, do you want to go up to Santa Maria with me and be my lead man on this rodeo movie? And I didn't even really know what a lead man was because I was doing these independent movies with just like 3 people in the whole art department. We were doing everything. We weren't like lead man this. I was a production designer, but I was doing props, I was painting the walls, everything. So she said, I know you need some money. Why don't you come up to Santa Maria with me and we'll do this rodeo movie. And it's called A Buyer, now that I was in the union, to be one of the buyers on Ali. So I ended up being a buyer, which is also paid as a set dresser on that Will Smith movie.
That kind of brings me to, I think, a question that we all kind of wonder about, which is the difference between all the different art departments, because you have the set decorator and then you have the production designer, and then because then there's times I'm sure that the props, and it's like, well, who's does this fall under, the set decorator or the prop master? And then does this fall under wardrobe? But then at the same time, you have to work with the costume designer when you're trying to do coloring and on this on the set. So yeah, if you break that down for us, that would be great.
Okay. So the production designer is in charge of the whole look of the film, and they interact with everybody. They choose the locations, they choose the palette, and they design the architecture, like the walls, the wall color. They say that let's shoot at 30th Street Station, or let's shoot at Penn Station. Like they're making those kind of decisions. They spend a lot of time in the van with the showrunner or the director, figuring out the whole world. And then underneath them or parallel to them, you have art directors, sometimes called the supervising art director. And they really interface a lot with the build, like with construction, signs, what the walls are, like the architect, right? And then the set decorators in a different department called set decorating, and we're doing all the stuff, like all the artwork on the walls, the furniture, the rugs, the bedding, the lamps, the hanging lights. It doesn't have to be interior. I bring in the traffic lights, I bring in the mailboxes. I like the street, I bring in the awnings. This is when we made downtown LA into Lake Como, Italy. So all the stuff on the streets and the awnings and the windows and like the incredible amount of things, like that's going to be me. And the idea that to paint that thing green, that's the production, that's the art director, or choosing the sign, but I'm bringing in all the stuff. And then if the actor holds it in their hand, it's a prop. And so sometimes the props I choose for the prop master, sometimes we do it together, but when the actor is actually holding it, it becomes a prop.
Just a follow-up. So where do you get the things that you need for the set? Because you're talking about furniture, you're talking about props. So where do you go and find these things?
So that's why my days are so long. People used to ask me when I was going to have kids, and I said, when I don't hear anymore, Target will be closing in 15 minutes. I mean, we have to go. Right now I'm in the Dominican Republic, so that's just like a whole nother thing. But in LA, we rent stuff from prop houses, we buy things from nice stores, we buy things from thrift stores, we buy things from antique stores, we buy things from Target, we buy things on eBay, we buy things on Wayfair. I mean, every set that you do might have like 100 different places the stuff comes from, just for one set. It's so complicated. We have we have these on our walls in the set deck department. We have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then we have little sleeves of what's coming in. What's coming in for from getting shipped in has one color. What somebody's delivering has another color. What you're picking up from as a rental has another color, and what's a purchase has another color, and what's promo has another color. And and then people have to, when the set is done, people have to wrap it and put the stuff that's bought in one place and return the rental somewhere else and return the promo. It's very, very complicated.
Well, I had one question because my friend who actually couldn't make it tonight, but she was like, I wondered about this because she's an artist, and she's like, do you ever like contact actual artists to have like certain artwork on the walls, you know, or do you just always sort of go through online looking for things, or you know?
Well, you know, I do a lot of television, so we have to be really fast, you know? So most of the time I get art from these big warehouses where everything is clear. But certain shows, when we're doing the permanent sets, if there are people who I like or know, like Misty, I had seen her work when Lois had a poetry reading, so I contacted her. And I use her work on All Rise for the permanent sets, and I use it on Grand Cru. And I mean, on the show I'm doing now, Saint X, there's this whole scene I just read. It kind of gave me a stomach ache when I read it last night. And it's this art opening with all this special artwork scripted, like this goat woman, goddess, and all these. I'm gonna have to get all that made. Like, it doesn't exist. So sometimes I have to get things made, you know, and
sometimes you have to research a certain artist, like their style, and then see if they can make it for you.
yeah, and I mean, I've reached out to people on Instagram, or like for Grand Cru, I used a lot of different people because there's not so much in the prop houses, just like the same black art that everybody uses. And I didn't want to use that because I wanted to do something good, you know, not banal. So, you know, I have a friend who I went to graduate school with. She's a good artist. I just went to her house and took art off the wall. I used
Really?
yeah, I was like, okay, can I have this and this and this and this? She's like, no. I was like, please. And then, you know, other people that kind of cross my path, they don't always work for the show you're doing, but then maybe you remember, because it has to fit the character.
Mm-hmm.